Welcome back to the deep dive. We are doing something a little different today.
Yeah, a bit of a change of pace.
Usually, we're tearing apart these massive corporate strategies, or we're wading through these just incredibly thick scientific papers about AI or biotechnology.
Oh, the heavy stuff.
The heavy stuff, exactly.
Yeah.
But today, we are looking at a stack of sources that feels intimate. It feels smaller in scope. But you really shouldn't let that fool you.
No, absolutely not.
What we're uncovering here tackles a problem that literally millions of people face every single day.
It's a universal struggle, isn't it? Communication.
Yes.
Specifically, the massive, often overwhelming mountain that is acquiring a new language. And looking at this stack, it's deceptive. It looks simple on the surface, but the implications are actually quite profound for how we think about, education in the digital age.
Exactly. So we're looking at a specific project today. The sources we have, they're a collection of notes, titles, and project descriptions. An interesting little pile. We have a document titled Audio Foundations for English Language Learners, which sounds pretty straightforward.
Right. Academic almost.
A little bit, yeah. Then we have something called the English Dreamcast Podcast Chronicles, which is a lot more intriguing.
That one jumps out. The name alone.
It does. Then there's another one on the genesis of the English Dreamcast, and finally a source titled The Wasim and Lisa Conversations.
So it's a tight stack, but it points to a very specific methodology. We aren't looking at a textbook here. Not at all. We aren't looking at a university syllabus or a curriculum from some fancy language school. We're looking at a digital-first, character-driven approach to cracking the code of English for beginners.
The name of the project is what grabbed me first. The English Dreamcast. It's so evocative.
It is.
It sounds less like a lesson plan and more like a movement or a show.
It is branding, absolutely, but I think it's branding with a pedagogical purpose. When you look at the source, the genesis of the English Dreamcast, and you couple that with the English Dreamcast Podcast Chronicles, you start to see that this isn't just about vocabulary lists.
Right.
It's about a narrative. It suggests a story is being told, a journey.
So here's our mission for this deep dive.
Right.
We need to unpack this whole ecosystem. We need to understand the intersection of the platform, which, spoiler alert for everyone listening, involves YouTube.
Which is the whole thing in its own.
Yeah, we'll get into that. The format, which is this unique podcast model, and the personnel. Who are Wasim and Lisa, and why are they the linchpins of this whole operation?
And the stakes are high here. Because if you have ever tried to learn a language, you know that the beginner phase is where most people quit.
Oh, absolutely.
It is the valley of death for learning. You buy the book, you do 3 pages, you get confused, you feel stupid, and you stop. The book just sits there.
I have been there. I have a shelf full of French books that mock me every time I walk past them. I'm not kidding.
Everybody does.
I think I know how to say the cat is black, and that's about it. And I probably get the gender wrong.
Right. And what we're seeing in this stack, specifically in that Audio Foundation source, is an attempt to bridge that gap, to make the beginner phase not just bearable, but actually engaging. It's trying to solve the attrition problem.
Okay, let's get into it then. I want to start with my initial reaction when I saw the source material. Like I said, the name, the English Dreamcast, really stuck out to me. It sounds like a broadcast of dreams, or maybe a play on words. But what really caught my eye was the target audience mentioned in the Audio Foundation source. It says explicitly, project for beginners.
That is the crucial detail. If you look at the podcast landscape, and I know you listen to a ton of podcasts, most of them are just people talking. And if you're learning a language, that is terrifying.
Oh, it's impossible.
Yeah.
I've tried to listen to podcasts in languages I've dabbled in, and it sounds like a wall of noise. Just a complete wall.
Yeah.
Everyone talks over each other. They use slang. They talk at 1,000,000 miles an hour. It's so discouraging. You feel like you'll never get there.
Right. And that is why the beginner label in the source, Audio Foundations for English Language Learners, is so significant. The market is flooded with intermediate content. Slow news or easy stories.
Right. The stuff for people who already have a foothold.
Exactly. But content for absolute beginners, that is usually reserved for the classroom or these very dry repeat after me tapes. So to apply a podcast model to beginners is actually a fairly bold pedagogical move.
Okay, so let's dive right into that identity. Section 1 of our discussion today is all about the identity and the platform. We're pulling primarily from the genesis of the English Dreamcast and the English Dreamcast Podcast Chronicles. The core fact we have is that the project is named the English Dreamcast.
Let's unpack that name. Dreamcast.
I have to admit, when I hear Dreamcast, I'm a child of the 90s, so I think of the Sega video game console, the white box with the orange swirl.
Oh, you were going to say that.
Is that just me projecting, or is there something there? Could it be a deliberate nod?
It's impossible to ignore the nostalgia factor, certainly. For a certain demographic, it evokes a specific feeling. But I think within the context of language learning, if we look at the source, the genesis of the English Dreamcast, which explicitly mentions explaining the channel name.
Which means they know it's a question people will have.
Exactly. It's intentional. We have to assume there's a deeper layer. It's a compound word, dream and broadcast.
It changes the framing of the task, doesn't it? English lessons sounds like work. It sounds like homework.
It's a chore.
Yeah. English Dreamcast sounds like a destination, a future you're tuning into.
It frames the language as a vehicle for aspiration. I mean, think about why people actually learn English. Usually, it is not for the love of irregular verbs.
No, nobody loves those.
They do it for a better job, to travel, to consume media, to understand the world. They do it for a dream. By calling it a Dreamcast, the creators are aligning the content with the user's ultimate goal, not just the mechanical process of learning.
It's clever. It sells the benefit, not the features. The feature is grammar, the benefit is the dream.
Exactly. It's classic marketing, but applied to education.
But let's look at the cast part of that name. Cast usually implies broadcast, or more specifically now, podcast.
Which leads us directly to the distribution. The source, the English Dreamcast Podcast Chronicles, is fascinating because of one specific detail, a very specific turn of phrase.
What's that?
It says, this podcast upload in YouTube.
Right. It's a contradiction in terms for a lot of purists, isn't it?
For sure.
A podcast is an RSS feed. It is audio you download to your phone. YouTube is for cat videos and video essays and, influencers. Why put a podcast on a video platform?
This is where the project shows a very high level of audience awareness. If you are a tech-savvy person in, say, Silicon Valley, you use a podcast app, you subscribe.
Sure. Overcast, Pocket Cast, whatever.
But if you are a teenager in Vietnam, or a grandmother in Brazil, or a student in parts of the world where data plans are specific, YouTube is the internet. It's not part of the internet. For many, it is the internet.
That is a massive distinction. We forget that in our little tech bubble, YouTube is the default search engine for everything for so many people.
Exactly. It is the second largest search engine in the world, right after Google itself. So if you want to reach a global audience of English learners, people in Brazil, in Japan, in Vietnam, you go where they already are.
You don't make them work for it.
You don't ask them to download a new app. You put the content on the platform they already use for music, for news, for entertainment. It's brilliant.
So by uploading to the channel the English Dreamcast, they are lowering the barrier to entry to almost zero.
Drastically. And I want to point out a detail from the source text here. In the source, the English Dreamcast Podcast Chronicles, the channel name is written as the English Dreamcast. Dreamcast.
I noticed that too. And in the Genesis source, it's spelled similarly. It seems to be the handle, the actual channel name.
It's the digital footprint. And you have to wonder if that's an SEO choice or maybe a common misspelling they're trying to capture or just a branding quirk.
It makes it unique, I guess. Easier to find.
It does, and it bridges the gap between audio-only learning and the visual platform. Even if the content is audio foundations, having it on YouTube allows for, well, we can speculate, but it allows for community in the comments section.
Right, people can ask questions.
It allows for subtitles, which is huge for a beginner.
Oh, closed captions. I didn't even think of that, of course.
Oh, that's a game changer.
If you're a beginner listening to a podcast on a standard audio app, you're flying blind. You hear a word you don't know, and it's just gone.
You can't even look it up because you don't know how to spell it.
Exactly. But if you're on YouTube, you might have that visual aid of the text on screen. You can pause, look up the word, and continue.
Precisely. The Source Audio Foundations emphasizes listening. But in the modern digital ecosystem, listening is often supported by reading. YouTube facilitates that better than a standard MP3 file ever could.
So, the English Dreamcast Podcast Chronicles isn't just a list of files. It's a record of building a community on a video platform using an audio-first format.
It's a hybrid approach.
It's a podcast model, but distributed like a video. It's hacking the system to reach the people who need it most.
It is a hybrid, and hybrids are often where innovation happens. It's not about inventing a whole new technology. It's about combining existing ones in a new way. It's hacking the infrastructure of video to deliver the pedagogy of audio.
Let's talk about that word chronicles for a second. The source is titled The English Dreamcast Podcast Chronicles. Why chronicles? Why not episodes or list?
Chronicle implies time. It implies history and progression.
It sounds grander.
It does. It suggests that order matters. If you're watching a sitcom, you can sometimes skip around. You can watch season 5 without seeing season 1.
Sure.
But if you're reading a chronicle, you need to know what happened in chapter 1 to understand chapter 10. There's a narrative through line.
Which is inherent to language learning. You can't learn the past tense before you know the present tense. You can't run before you can walk.
Precisely. It reinforces the idea that this is a journey. The Genesis starts it and the Chronicles continue it. It tells the learner, trust the process, follow the path.
It's a promise.
It is. It suggests that if you stick with the Chronicle, there's an end goal, there's a progression. You won't be a beginner forever.
And that brings us to the core of what this project actually is. We've talked about the name of the platform, but what is the method? What are they actually doing? Let's move to section 2, the pedagogical approach.
Right. We're looking at the podcast model. The source, Audio Foundations for English Language Learners, is our guide here. And again, I want to circle back to that word, beginners.
It's the most important word in the stack.
It is the most important word in the stack. I really believe that.
So why is it so rare to find podcasts for beginners? You think that would be the biggest market? Everyone starts as a beginner. It's the one thing all learners have in common.
It is the biggest market, but it's also the hardest content to produce. It's incredibly difficult.
Harder than intermediate or advanced?
Much harder. To make a podcast for beginners, you cannot just turn on a microphone and chat like we are now. You have to script it. You have to control your vocabulary meticulously. You have to control your speed. You have to limit the idioms you use.
Everything has to be deliberate.
Every single word. It requires a level of pedagogical restraint that most content creators just don't have or aren't interested in. It's hard work.
That makes a lot of sense. If I just turn on a mic and start talking about my weekend, I'm going to use past tense, future perfect, slang, phrasal verbs. It's a total mess for a beginner. They'd catch maybe 1 word in 10.
Exactly. So when the source says, project for beginners listening English in podcast model, it is promising something very specific. It is promising a structured, simplified, and safe audio experience.
Let's unpack podcast model then. What does that phrase mean in this context? If it's not just 2 people chatting freely, but it's also not a classroom drill of repeat after me, the pen is on the table, what is it?
I think the podcast model here implies serialization and portability. In a traditional classroom, you might have a CD that goes with a textbook. You listen to track 14, do the exercise, and you forget about it.
It's disposable content.
It is. A podcast is designed to be consumed on the go. It's designed to be a habit. It fits into the cracks of your life, your commute, when you're doing dishes, when you're going for a walk.
So the English Dreamcast isn't just a lesson, it's a show. It's a piece of your daily or weekly routine.
It's a show. And that distinction matters immensely. If you are listening to a show, you are engaged in the narrative, you are looking forward to the next episode, it shifts the learner's mindset from studying, which is a chore, to consuming content, which is a pleasure.
And the source specifically says listening English. It doesn't say grammar drills. It doesn't say writing practice. It's all about the input.
That connects back to the theory of comprehensible input. The idea, put simply, is that the best way to learn a language is to just listen to a massive amount of it, provided you can understand enough of it to follow along.
You have to get the gist.
You have to get the gist. If it's 100% comprehensible, you're not learning anything new. If it's 5% comprehensible, it's just noise and you get discouraged. The sweet spot is somewhere in between.
So by focusing on listening English, this project is prioritizing the ear. It's saying, before you worry about conjugation charts and complex grammar, just get used to the sound and rhythm of the language.
It's like how babies learn, right? They listen for, a year or 2 before they start speaking in coherent sentences. They're just absorbing the sounds around them.
Yeah, they're downloading the data.
Roughly, yes. It's about building those audio foundations that are mentioned in the source title. You cannot build a house without a foundation. You cannot speak English if you haven't heard English. And for a beginner, hearing English in the wild is overwhelming.
It's like trying to drink from a fire hose.
Perfect analogy. So this project creates a safe, controlled environment, a dreamcast, where the English is tailored for their ears. It's a gentle stream, not a fire hose.
I love that image. A safe harbor for your ears.
Yeah.
But a podcast needs more than just slow talking. It needs personality. It needs a voice. It needs to be interesting enough to keep you coming back every week.
And that is the catch-22. That's the real challenge.
How so?
Usually when you strip the language down to a beginner level, it becomes painfully boring. The cat is on the table, the dog is under the table. It's robot talk.
Right. And no one wants to listen to robot talk for 20 minutes on their commute. You'd rather just listen to music.
Exactly. The genius of the podcast model mentioned in the source is that it attempts to bring the engagement of a show to the simplicity of a beginner lesson. It wants to be compelling, even if the vocabulary is limited to, say, 500 words.
It's the difference between doing push-ups in your room and playing a sport.
Oh, that's a fantastic analogy.
Both are exercise. Both make you stronger, but one is a lot more fun to keep doing day after day.
That is a fantastic analogy. And to play a sport, you need teammates. You need people to interact with. You need a dynamic. Which brings us, I think, to the cast.
Yes. Let's move to section 3, the characters. The source, the Wasim and Lisa conversations, introduces us to the cast. We have 2 names, Wasim and Lisa.
Wasim and Lisa. And note that they aren't called teacher A and student B.
Right.
They aren't called the narrator. They have specific human names.
Why does that matter so much? Why name them? What's the function of that?
It anchors the experience. It creates a relationship. When you listen to a podcast, you develop a relationship with the hosts. You and I were talking right now, and the listeners are hopefully getting to know our dynamic. They know I'm going to analyze things. They know you're going to bring the energy and the big picture questions.
Hopefully.
For a language learner, that familiarity is a safety net. It's a huge comfort. If every episode had different voices, the learner would have to constantly recalibrate their ear. Oh, this person has a deep voice. This person speaks fast. This one has an accent I don't recognize.
It's more cognitive load.
A ton more. By having Wasim and Lisa as the constants, the learner can relax. They know Wasim's voice. They know Lisa's voice. After a few episodes, they can stop focusing on who is talking and focus entirely on what they're saying.
That is such a good point. It removes a variable from an already very complicated equation.
Exactly. And let's look at the source title again. The Wasim and Lisa conversations. The key word there, the most important word, is conversations.
So they are talking to each other. It's not a monologue.
They are interacting. This is absolutely crucial for the podcast model. If it were just one person reading a text, that's an audiobook. That's a lecture. A conversation models social interaction. It's dynamic.
It shows the learner how English actually works between 2 people. The turn taking, the questions and the answers.
And the pauses, the reactions, the little interjections like, oh, really? Or I didn't know that. These are the things that make language feel alive.
A connective tissue.
Yes. By framing the content as conversations between Wasim and Lisa, the project is teaching the rhythm of English, not just the vocabulary and grammar. It's teaching the music of the language.
I'm curious about the names themselves. Wasim and Lisa. Lisa is a very common, standard English name. Wasim sounds more international, more Arabic, perhaps.
We can only speculate, of course, but that feels very intentional. Often in English learning materials, you have a teacher figure and a learner figure,
Right.
or perhaps 2 friends from different backgrounds using English as their common language. Historically, if you look at English language teaching or ELT materials from a few decades ago, you had John and Mary.
Oh, yeah. Always. John and Mary go to the shop.
John and Mary Smith from London, 2 native speakers, usually British or American, modeling perfect English for the learner.
Which is completely unrealistic because today, most English conversations in the world happen between non-native speakers.
Exactly. English is a global lingua franca. By introducing a character named Wasim, you are likely introducing a character who represents the international speaker. Maybe he has a slight accent. Maybe he's a learner himself. The source doesn't explicitly state their backstories, but the name choice signals inclusivity right away.
It allows the listener to see themselves in the cast. If I'm a learner from, say, the Middle East or South Asia, I might identify with Wasim. Lisa might be the guide or the native speaker model.
Or perhaps they're both learners or both fluent speakers from different places. That would be an interesting twist. But the pairing suggests a dynamic. It suggests a dialogue between cultures, potentially, with English as the bridge.
It definitely feels more modern and more representative of the real world than John and Mary Smith Live in London.
It reflects the global nature of English, and connecting this back to the English Dreamcast brand, if this is a broadcast of dreams, maybe the dream is about connection. It's about Wazim and Lisa connecting through language, and you, the listener, joining them.
So Wazim and Lisa are the guides. They're the ones walking the beginners through these audio foundations. They are the consistent thread running through the chronicles.
Exactly. They are the human element in the digital distribution. You go to YouTube, the platform, you find the channel, the English Dreamcast, you click on the podcast, the format, but you stay for Wazim and Lisa, the personalities.
It creates a parasocial relationship, doesn't it? We feel like we know the hosts of the podcast we listen to regularly.
We do.
I assume the goal here is for the learner to feel like Wazim and Lisa are their friends, their English-speaking friends.
Friends is the key word, because what is the number one enemy of language learning? It's anxiety.
The fear of making a mistake.
The fear of sounding stupid. If you are stressed, your brain shuts down. There's a concept in linguistics called the affective filter. If the filter is up because you're anxious, the input can't get in.
It's like a shield.
It is. But if you are relaxed, if you're listening to your friends Wazim and Lisa just have a pleasant chat, your anxiety drops. Your filter opens. The input goes in. It's that simple.
So Wazim and Lisa aren't just characters. They are, in a way, anxiety reduction tools.
Functionally, yes. They are the emotional anchor of the English Dreamcast. They make the process feel safe.
Wow. Okay, let's move to section 4. Synthesis. We need to pull all these threads together. We've broken down the parts, the name, the platform, the format, the characters, but how do they fit together to create this cohesive thing?
If we zoom out, what we see is a very cleverly designed ecosystem. And it's an ecosystem designed to solve what I would call the friction problem of learning.
Walk me through that. What do you mean by friction in this context?
Friction is anything that stops you from doing a habit, any little obstacle.
Okay.
I can't find my textbook. That's friction. I forgot my password for the learning app. Friction. I have to pay for a subscription. Friction. The lesson is too hard and I feel lost. Massive friction.
The teacher is boring and I don't want to listen. That's friction too.
Exactly. The English Dreamcast seems designed, piece by piece, to remove all those friction points. Let's break it down.
Go for it.
Step 1, platform friction. That's removed by using YouTube. Everyone has it. You don't need a new login or a subscription. It's free and it's already on your phone.
Okay, that makes sense.
Step 2, access and scheduling friction. That's removed by the podcast model. You don't have to be at your desk at 7 p.m. for a class. You can listen anytime. It fits into your life, not the other way around.
So it's on demand.
Completely. Step 3, difficulty friction. That's removed by targeting beginners specifically. It makes a promise. This won't overwhelm you. This is for you.
It manages expectations.
Perfectly. And step 4, engagement friction. The boredom factor. That's removed by using Wazim and Lisa to create a narrative, a conversation, a human connection. You're not just studying, you're catching up with them.
It's a frictionless learning machine.
Or at least it's attempting to be. It works by creating a self-reinforcing loop. You find it easily on YouTube, you understand it because it's for beginners, you like the people, Wazim and Lisa, so you come back for the next one. It's a virtuous cycle.
It sounds so simple when you lay it out like that, but it's actually quite sophisticated. It addresses the technical, the pedagogical, and the emotional aspects of learning all at once.
And it creates a sense of transparency that I think is really important. The source, the genesis of the English Dreamcast, mentions explaining the channel name. This is meta content.
What do you mean by that?
They aren't just teaching English, they are talking about the project in English. The first episode is probably something like, "Welcome to the English Dreamcast. Here is why we call it that. This is our dream for you."
So they're letting the learner in on the mission.
Right. That treats the learner with respect. It doesn't treat them like a child who just needs to repeat phrases. It treats them like an insider. Come join our club. We're going to build this thing together. That sense of belonging is a powerful, powerful motivator.
It's community building from day one. And looking at the chronicle source again, it implies consistency. A chronicle isn't a one-off. It's a commitment from the creators to the learners.
Consistency is the only magic pill in language learning. That's it. There are no shortcuts. If this project can get a user to subscribe to the English Dreamcast channel and listen to every Wazim and Lisa conversation for 6 months, that learner will improve. They will learn.
Right.
The specific methodology almost doesn't matter as much as the consistency. And all the Dreamcast elements we've talked about, the characters, the format, the platform, are all in service of securing that consistency.
It's interesting that we haven't seen any mention of grammar drills or quizzes or tests in these sources. It's all focused on audio, listening, conversations.
That is the modern shift in language pedagogy. It's a move away from learning about the language, memorizing grammar rules, and toward acquiring the language through usage and input.
What's the difference, really?
You can know every rule of grammar and still not be able to order a coffee under pressure. You freeze up. But if you've heard people order coffee in 100 different conversations, you just do it. This project is optimizing for the coffee order. It's optimizing for the connection.
It's optimizing for the dream.
To bring it all the way back to the name, yes. The dream isn't to be able to conjugate verbs perfectly on a test. The dream is to understand Wazim. The dream is to laugh at Lisa's joke. The dream is to connect with another human being.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm really struck by how much strategy is hidden inside this small stack of notes. The English Dreamcast sounds cute, but it's actually a surgical strike on the biggest pain points of language learning.
It's a great example of meeting the user where they are. Don't try to build a new platform and force people to come to you. Use YouTube. Don't invent new characters every time. Use Wazim and Lisa to build familiarity. Don't aim for the middle of the market. Aim for the beginners who need the most help.
My big takeaway is the power of the podcast model when it's applied to education. We usually think of podcasts as entertainment or news, but treating education as a show with episodes, characters, and a platform we already love, that feels like the future.
It turns studying into streaming. And we all know how good we are at streaming.
We can binge watch a whole season of a show in a weekend without even thinking about it. Imagine if we could binge learn a language with that same enthusiasm, that same lack of friction.
That is the holy grail. That's what every educational technologist is chasing.
So here is the question I want to leave you with, and for everyone listening to think about. We've talked about the genesis and the foundations. This is all about starting the journey. But I'm thinking about the timeline.
Go on.
If the English Dreamcast works, if it's successful, the listeners won't be beginners forever.
Right. They'll improve. That's the whole point.
Exactly. But if the podcast is explicitly for beginners, what happens when the audience outgrows Wazim and Lisa? What's the next step in the chronicle?
That is the ultimate paradox of a successful educational product, isn't it? If it works, it makes itself obsolete. You're designed to be left behind.
So what do? Do Wazim and Lisa get more advanced? Does the show evolve into the English Dreamcast? Intermediate years? Or do they have to say goodbye to their audience and welcome a new wave of beginners?
It's a bittersweet thought. Is the relationship with Wazim and Lisa designed to last a lifetime? Or is it designed to launch you into the world? And if the learner moves on, do they feel a sense of loss leaving their first English friends behind?
That's a deep question.
It really highlights the emotional bond we form with the voices in our ears. They become part of our lives, and then one day, we don't need them anymore.
Maybe that's the final lesson. The language is just the tool. The relationships, even the parasocial ones with podcast characters, are what make it stick.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for diving in with us today. It's been a fascinating look at how we learn and how we connect.
Always a pleasure.
And to you listening, whether you are a beginner, an expert, or just someone who loves a good chronicle, keep listening. We'll see